Everyone, and welcome to our first licensing committee meeting of 2025. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Clark, have there been any apologies for absence?
Yeah, so apologies have been received from Councillor Gunes, Councillor Costa and Councillor Peacock.
Thank you. And is there any urgent business for us to discuss today?
No items reported.
Thank you. And do members have any declarations of interest? Thank you. And have any deputations, petitions, presentations and questions been received?
None received, Chair.
So the first item on the agenda relates minutes. We have attached in the pack the minutes of the licensing committee meeting held on the 29th of July 2024. Can we indicate that these minutes are a correct record?
Agreed.
Thank you. So we'll now turn to the only item left on the agenda, which is a review of fees and charges for 2025-2026. Ms. Barrett, can you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Chair. So the Council's has an income policy and we are required to review this annually. And this really sets out what levels of fees and charges are going to be levied upon service users. It's important to note that the licensing committee is able to set and determine fees and charges for the discretionary fees, but not for the fees under the Licensing Act 2003. The Gambling Act 05 fees are already at their fee maximums, which have been set by the committee a couple of years back now, so we can't go any further with those. But the other fees that you have that are shown in the report is really looking at your massage and special treatment license applications, street trading applications, and other sundry matters that the committee is charged with setting the fees for. So this report really looks at increasing the fees by 5% across the board. We've also sought to introduce a fee for promotional activities taking place on the public highway. We do get a lot of interest of people wanting to do, either food sampling or certain kinds of, sampling or information given on the public highway. And we haven't been making a charge for that up to this point, but we believe that it's something, in terms of needing to meet budgets and so forth, that it's something that we should now set a fee for going forward. So just to bring just to put in context, there is case law for in Hemmings versus Westminster City Council that concluded that the amount of fee is required to be determined every year. And further to that a local authority was precluded from making a profit from licensing schemes. And furthermore, where a fee covers the costs, both of application and of subsequent administration, including enforcement, separate fees should be set for each activity. So we've sought to do that throughout the fees and charges sheet that you have in front of you. Alternatives that were being considered was to do nothing. This was discounted as our costs have not disproportionately reduced. And if anything, they have in fact increased. So we would be subsidizing those licensing process. A reduction in the discretionary fees was also ruled out, as obviously our costs have gone up. And a significant increase has been considered but discounted due to the fact that, in particular for the street trading fees, we have to ensure that we are cost neutral. So we can't hike up the fees on these. We must be ensuring that we are covering the cost of running the service in terms of the ability to deal with street trading matters in general. At section 5 there, you've got the background information there, Chair, that sets out the various licensing applications and what the fees are set for. You've also got in the report the finance officer's comment at point 8 and comment from the head of legal service also. We have carried out an equalities screening. We didn't find that there was any protected characteristics that were going to be disadvantaged by these fees. They are the business as usual fees that are set in place. And, you know, we have factored in as much as we can in terms of ensuring that the fees are proportionate for the activities that they're being set for, Chair. If you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. I have a couple of questions and then I'll open the floor to colleagues in case they have questions of their own. So my first question relates to paragraph 5.4 of the report, which explains that where fees are calculated on a cost recovery basis, the proposed fees have been increased by approximately 5%. The paragraph also mentions some of the financial pressures that have led to this increase. Could you give us a bit more context on how the report, how, as you are preparing the report, you've landed on this figure of approximately 5%?
To be frank, Chair, it's actually the fee, that percentage is actually given to us by the finance officer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are told each year what that percentage needs to be increased by, or what the increase is, and it is therefore worked out accordingly.
So essentially, the finance officer would come to that figure because she
It
would have
is,
that.
yes.
If it's at that figure, the council would not make a profit, but it wouldn't make a loss either.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. And on this new charge on for product sampling and promotional activity, could you explain how the council is defining promotional activity for the purposes of this charge?
Right, so we do have from time to time businesses such as some of the power companies wanting to come and engage with the public and sign up new customers, that sort of thing. And more often than not, they want to come and use a van and have a trailer left on the pavement overnight and that sort of thing. And so yeah, so that's really what the cost is there for. There are some promotional matters, some commodities that we don't allow. So we don't allow the promotion of tobacco, for instance, no smoking related matters, nothing that's promoting alcohol either, or gambling at all, or like payday loans, that sort of thing. We wouldn't allow to be having a spot on the high road, really.
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Do any other committee members have a question? Councillor Weston.
Thanks, Chair. It's on the promotional activities because there's no detail in the report that I could see. It refers to paragraph 5.7, but there isn't a paragraph 5.7 in the report. And I just wanted to check, are the promotional activities those? So I'm looking at page 99 of the pack. So under regulatory services on 12, 13 and 14, because the report says they're new fees, but that would suggest that there are existing fees which are being increased. So it's just for clarity, really.
No, they are new fees, entirely new fees that we are setting for promotional activities. Yeah, I understand that there was a section or somebody in I wouldn't say the comms team, but somebody was operating some kind of registration of these activities previously. But when I found that out, I did make clear that it was something that was actually done under street trading, hence the reason why we've now had to be setting fees for it.
I'm just a bit confused because on page 99 it says current charge. If I'm right and it is 12, 13 and 14, I could be looking else. I might be in the wrong part of the report, but I can't find it elsewhere. There is a column which says current charge for 23-24 and then an increase by 5% across 24-25. So I'm just a bit unsure about.
No, it should be. It should just be in a new column on its own.
Right.
Sorry, it shouldn't have the
Okay.
5% increase on there.
Okay, so the new charges will be the £473 and the £61.
Yeah, That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Small?
Can I also just confirm on the same point with on page 99, where it says the current charge 2324, it says at the top of the table 2324, assuming that's probably just that hanging from an old spreadsheet. This is
That-
24. So
That needs to be, yes, sorry about that.
that's another question.
Yes, of course.
Just going back to Chair's question on the 5%, do you have any oversight over the financial balance sheet in terms of whether you're making a loss or a profit based on the intake? It seems to be a very nice round number, 5%, and it seems to sit in very nicely with the other average fees and charges that we're raising across the rest of the council. To be definitely
Unfortunately,
sure we've got a surplus or a loss.
yeah, and by rights, that is exactly how the street trading account should be sorted out. It should be done on its own, but I
Yeah.
don't have that luxury here, I'm afraid. So it's
Okay.
done corporately, and I'm told what the increase is year on year or otherwise, I'm afraid.
So thank you.
It's not, it's, had it been a ring fenced, fee, maybe things would be a little bit different, but it's not ring fenced, and therefore it's dealt with from a
Yeah.
corporate level.
I think my main concern around that would just be because it in the report it does make quite clear that we can't make a surplus. That would be to effectively it would be unlawful to make a surplus. It would and if we are mixing in these fees, how can we be guaranteed and sure that we're not making?
To be honest, Chair, I think we can be rest assured we're not making a surplus. And in fact, I would want to make the argument, I would make the argument for the fees to be higher, in fact, because when you factor in that all of this is meant to be able to cover officers' time to do enforcement also, 4 officers going out every couple of weeks to even do like a Spurs game to deal with the illegal street traders that turn up at Spurs, does outweigh the budget that we have for this, in terms of the overtime payment, all that sort of thing. It is really difficult, but yeah, it would be unfair if we were, putting that extra amount of costs on the, let me count, on the 10 or so registered street traders that we have in the borough. Yeah, it would be quite a significant hike for them to have to make sure that they're covering the cost of, even one Spurs game, and and it wouldn't be fair for the traders that are only based in Wood Green as well to have to cover the cost of what it's costing us to, for officers to be out on a Spurs match game, so forth. And what I have tried to do though is to only have, or to have the match day traders pay their fees as normal, obviously what you're setting there, and then when there is an event, there is a separate fee also in there that they pay if they want to come out and be trading on an event day. They pay a fee for that day basically, and that's how we try to recuperate some costs to pay for the officers that have to work on those days, to pay for their overtime. Sorry, it's all swings and roundabouts, I'm afraid, and trying to balance things out, but
Thank you, Ms. Barrett. Are there any other questions? Councillor Amin.
Just ask you, for example, I'm slightly anxious about the promotional activity because some of it I know is useful, some of it isn't. Some of health related stuff tends to be quite interesting actually, and could be useful for local residents. So I just wondered a bit about, I was in Tesco and there was Oxfam, for example, and they were talking about what they do. And there's always a health person or somebody always there. So I'm a little bit anxious that we are putting a charge on people on our streets on promotional activity, and actually makes an uneven impact because places like Tesco, for example, have promotional activity space and they do it. Similarly with the market increases, just again, it feels to me other people provide spaces for market stalls and stuff, and it means that they're paying much less to those who are in our own spaces. So I just wondered a little bit about this kind of uneven impact it might have. Well, I don't know whether it will or not, but I'm just kind of a little bit anxious that I don't want to curtail what could be useful against what could be not useful. So just,
Yeah. Okay, so obviously we can't deal with what happens inside the Tesco's stores or the Sainsbury's stores or anything like that. That's down to them as to who they have in there, if they've got any promotional activities taking place in there. But we are responsible for what happens on the public highway. And so that's why we need to be able to say yes or no to, you know, certain types of promotional activities and have something in place, some safeguards in place around that. Health promotions, you know, sometimes if Cancer Research wants to come and do a week on the public highway, they are able to come and do that, and there is no charge for that because that is a public health benefit, you know, that they're doing a public service there. So we wouldn't charge them to be there. It's not as though they are one of the, you know, energy providers who are wanting to seek to gain more customers, yeah, to make more profit, that sort of thing. Yeah.
but I think they should say who's going to be charged and who isn't going to be charged, because it feels to me uneven across the board, basically.
It feels uneven across the board in terms of
Say charities, for example, will it say then that charities will be exempt from the charge of promotional activity? So Oxfam, so I'm just as an example, if
Yeah.
Oxfam doing something out there, trying to get people's interest in what they're doing at the moment in countries across the world, would that be charged or not charged?
Oxfam don't really do this. So that separate to the promotional activity type side of things, there is the fundraising organisation, and Haringey already has an agreement with the fundraising regulators as to just for them to let us know when charities are coming to the area to come and sign up people. So that's fine. That doesn't change at all. Oxfam, Save the Children, all of those can still come to Haringey and do their work in Haringey. What we deal with in terms of all the I hate the word chuggers, but yeah, but what we then deal with is the complaints that come in, because there are times when residents complain to us that they cannot walk down Wood Green High Road for fear of being accosted by somebody who wants to sign them up to a direct debit thing, you know. And so, but obviously, you know, we want to support charities being able to come into and use the high street. So yeah, so that won't change, Cancer. That will be fine as is. Sorry, there was a second part to your question.
Yeah, I was just a little bit anxious that if I live opposite Wood Corner Market. So, for example, so if they are having stalls in their space and somebody else puts a stall on one of our streets, you know, because in fact they actually do impinge on our street, but I think it's TfL territory actually. But if they don't get charged that extra funding and the extra amount, but anybody on our own streets would. So it just feels a bit uneven. But I understand what you're saying. If they're on our space, it's a different thing to when they are in anybody else's space. I understand, but I just feel a little bit anxious about market traders, especially stallholders, especially who actually have to make quite a reasonable amount to make the ends meet, and will have a much more significant impact if they're on our streets than on other properties.
So yeah, so obviously the Ward's Corner bit, you know, any market taking place within a premises, we don't touch at all. You know, it doesn't come on across my desk at all. So the markets on the public highway certainly do, because nobody should be trading on the public highway without a license from the council. So we need to have a fee set for that. And the market at Tottenham Green and so forth is a market that is supported by our economic development team. Yeah. So, you know, there is somebody that is assigned as the market operator there. They themselves charge a fee of each individual coming to attend that market, each trader coming to attend that market. My argument would be that that fee is not actually, shouldn't be charged at all, because it's not for that operator to charge the individual trader. It's for the council to charge them because they're being on the public highway. So, you know, we are, the fees put in place are extremely reasonable, councillor. I will defy any trader that will be able to go to any other surrounding, you know,
No, that's-
Harringay's not a market borough. I would defy any of
I
them to
know.
go to any of the
That's-
surrounding boroughs
Yeah,
to get a
that's like-
trading facility for the day at
I
that
know,
cost.
it'd be much more expensive if they went to Hackney, for example. I know, because I do know people who run stalls in Hackney. One final thing on Tottenham Hotspur, when NFL, for example, fence it off the area, they do promotional activity. Now, any possibility of charging, making sure that organisations who do that, including NFL, who
Absolutely,
really
councillor.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm on that.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ms. Farr. We have an additional point from councillor Weston.
I'd just like to go back to the promotional activity issue. Is there a policy that regulates this, or does it fall within an existing policy? Because there's questions about who is covered and who isn't. And people do need to be able to understand that.
It will fall within the street trading legislation. So charities are seen to be exempt in terms of street trading. Yeah. But it doesn't, but if they then start to put things on the street and placing things on the public highway, then they then will start incurring costs.
No, that's fine. I just wanted clarity on, because if this is a new fee, then if this is going to fall within an existing policy, which promotional activity people can read and understand, then fair enough. But because it's a new fee, I just wanted clarity on whether in fact that was the case. So thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, councillor Walker?
You can also Tottenham Hotspur does.
It's just out of interest, really. What's the difference between traditional stalls, Tottenham Hotspur match day, and non-food stalls, day stalls?
Traditional stalls are the 7 designated spaces that we have agreed. Yeah. So there are 7 in total that have got designated by the council to have their stall there, and they never give them up because the legislation also has succession rights. And so, you know, I get at least 8 or so requests for a stall at Tottenham High Road outside the stadium, and everybody gets refused because we don't have the space to make any new stalls, and the designated ones that are there will not part with them for love nor money, because they can hand them down in their families. They are passed on through wills and everything else. And the other non-traditional ones is that we've got 3 stalls that are in somebody's front yard, in people's front yards. And those are given as temporary stalls that we renew every 6 months or so. Yeah.
And you've also had, can I ask, the stalls in the sports centre as well, especially on NFL days. So again, will there be any implications for them? Because
no, they don't come under my remit because they are within an enclosed space. There is a fixed fencing around those, and they know this, so hence the reason why they've gone in there. I'm surprised the school hasn't also, across the way, also opted to have stores in there as well, which they could earn their own money from if they did that too.
I was just going to say, David, that their waste also comes onto our streets, basically. It's not as if they're going to put a closed fence that keeps it in there, because you can't anyway. So the waste would come into.
But the landlord needs to have made that sorted out that in the contract he would have given them to be there in the first place.
Any other?
Sorry, just a question. Obviously, this proposal raises all the fees that we can by 5%. Would we have had the power to raise different fees by different amounts, or does it have to be a blanket increase?
Since I've been doing this, it's always been a blanket amount that we are given. In an ideal world, if we had the control of the budget within the team ourselves, and we're having to do the checks and balances on the books, that would be maybe a different outcome there, but we're not in that in that position.
Any other questions, comments? No. In that case, we have a motion to adopt. And the motion is that we agree that as a licensing committee, we approve the fees set out in Appendix 1, which set out an increase of 5% on existing discretionary fees for 2025 to 2026, and the introduction of promotional activity fees as set out in the report. And we also note that Licensing Act and Gambling Act premises fees are already set at statutory maximums and make up a significant proportion of the fees collected. Do we agree to that motion?
Yeah, agree.
Agreed.
So that motion is agreed. Are there any new items of urgent business?
Non-reported, Chair.
None. In that case, we can bring this meeting to an end, and we can all enjoy the rest of our evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, Sonia.
Bye.